Hi, good afternoon, everyone,
Hello.
both here in Brazil and Ireland, elsewhere. If there is anyone following us, or maybe will watch this later, it's with great pleasure that I am introducing today Dr. Niamh Wycherley and Mr. Tiago Veloso. They both work at the University of Maynooth. Let me first, briefly introduce group Insulae in case someone doesn't know it. Yes, it's a research group based in Brazil, specialized in the research of the isles of the North Atlantic, both in the ancient and medieval periods. It's a multidisciplinary group. We have scholars across the entire country registered at different institutions, working with different time frames. The group is coordinated by myself, and I am Dr. Elaine Pereira Faro. I am based at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, doing a postdoc at the moment. And the other coordinators are Dr. Renato Pinto at the Federal University of Pernambuco and Dr. Isabella Albuquerque at the University of Pernambuco. So we are delighted to welcome both Niamh and Tiago today. So Niamh has a doctoral degree from the University College Dublin. She has been
Yeah.
I believe Elaine had an issue with in her internet, so maybe I will start the live now. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Sure.
maybe she returns soon enough.
Yeah.
So Elaine was presenting Dr. Niamh. She holds a doctoral degree from the University College Dublin and has been very successful a doctoral research award, has an impressive teaching portfolio, and amongst her publications is her prized book, The Cult of Relics in Early Medieval Ireland. And she recently has been awarded by a prestigious science foundation, Ireland, Irish Research Council Pathway Program, which she will talk to us about in a few minutes. I believe Elaine is back.
Oh yeah. I
Elaine,
think.
can you hear us?
Hi, I apologize for
Elaine?
that. Oi.
Oh,
Yeah, I
you're
think
back
my
to the.
internet.
Yes.
Yeah, my internet cut. I don't think it's been very steady. I wish you live.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
live. I was continuing your presentation of Dr. Niamh. If you want to keep
Okay.
presenting her, I
Yeah.
will remove myself now.
Yeah, you can continue because I don't know where you stopped. So you can introduce her, and maybe if you want to ask her the first question, that'll be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and we also have here Tiago, has a master's in philosophy degree from the University of Brasilia and is currently developing a doctoral degree under the umbrella of Niamh's project. So many thanks for both of you for making time to talk us today. Uh, so let's start with Niamh. Before we chat about your new project, um, let's talk about Bridget and the New Holiday. Last February, we had Dr. Elva Johnston talking to us about who was the historical Bridget and how can we know about her and her cult in the Middle Ages. You have been very active delivering public talks about Bridget at the television, radio, and other medias. Could you briefly explain to our audience why is Bridget so important in Irish history, culture, and folklore?
Hi, thanks a million for having myself and Tiago on, and it's a pleasure to talk to the group on today. And yeah, to get started on St. Bridget's. So we had a public holiday yesterday in Ireland, the first one commemorating St. Bridget, that's going to be every year from now on. So it kind of, in theory, marks the start of spring. And actually this year it really has marked the start of spring. I kept on telling Tiago that the weather in February in Ireland is terrible, but it's actually been really nice. The daffodils are out. It's very spring-like. So it's amazing to have a public holiday at this time of year, and it's the first that commemorates a woman. And I think just that in itself testifies to the legacy of St. Bridget and her longevity. I think, why she's so important in Irish history, culture, and folklore, we could obviously talk about that for about a week. To me, I think why she is so significant, if I just had to focus on one aspect of Bridget, that would be her legacy in terms of founding the Church of Kildare, because the Church of Kildare became one of the most influential and powerful institutions in Ireland for about centuries in the Middle Ages. Second only for some time, it may have even been the most powerful institution, but it was quickly overtaken by Armagh. But second only to Armagh, we really can't overestimate the importance of the Church of Kildare in Ireland in the Middle Ages. So Kildare was founded by Bridget, supposedly around the 5th or early 6th centuries. We don't have a lot of evidence for Ireland at that time. We don't have a lot of historical evidence, So we try to marry up some place name evidence with archaeological evidence and with the later written sources. But it's not really until the 7th century that we get any kind of significant amount of written sources. So that period in our history is a little bit hazy as regards to everyone, and that's the period in which Bridget is supposed to have been active in. But what we do know is that a woman founded the Church of Kildare. We're told that the name of this woman was Bridget, and all of the early sources as well concur that this woman Bridget was from a people called the Faughart, which was focused around Leinster and near the area where she founded the Church of Kildare. So basically, for me, she is a real historical woman who founded a church in what was a deeply hierarchical and patriarchal society. So it was no mean feat that she achieved even that in itself, but also that church went on to become such a powerful institution. It meant that all of the women who followed Bridget, so the abbesses, the subsequent abbesses of Kildare, the heirs of Bridget, that they, at any one given time in Irish medieval history, the abbess of Kildare was the most powerful woman in the country. So I think that's a massive legacy that she left. And that's just one aspect of why I think Bridget is so important.
Niamh, thank you so much. As you said, we could definitely just spend a week talking about Bridget, the historical Bridget, but also everything else that has been created around her, like the folklore, all the, even the kind of new age religion and how popular she became for non-experts. Let's talk a little bit more about the new holidays. I'm glad that you could enjoy it, because I am in Brazil now. I couldn't enjoy the holidays, so it was just a normal working day for me yesterday. So it's officially now a holiday, and a holiday, the first holiday of the year now. So it's before Patrick's, which is next month, and celebrates a woman. And obviously there has been a loss of, public kind of government campaign around it. And it's focusing on celebrating the talents of women, and has this, slogan, I am Bridget, Ich mich Brid. would you talk a little bit more of the impact of it? Do you think it could potentially give any, positive impact on academia or on tourism in Ireland or awareness of heritage? What do you think is the significance for us as historians or, just general academic people working with medieval history? Would that have any positive impact for us?
Well, you know what? I'd like to think that it will have a positive impact, but it's just, being realistic, I don't know. I think what it is really significant for me is that yet again, as a nation, we are defining ourselves in relation to the early medieval period. Okay, so we sell Ireland abroad as the island of saints and scholars from this period of history. The Book of Kells, Skellig Michael in the Star Wars franchise, Glendalough, St. Patrick, right? Tom McNoy's, Cuchulainn and Queen Maeve. Okay, so we define ourselves, our kind of our national identity, in relation to this period of our past. Yet, in the university sector, medieval history is really undervalued. And in actual fact, it is difficult now as an undergraduate student to study this period in Irish history at all because medieval historians are not being hired in university departments. So what we see is there's definitely a public appetite for this period in our history. There's a tourism appetite, a business appetite. The government is promoting it. As you said, for St. Bridget's Day now, the government's really into promoting it. And there's a disjuncture there between, all of those aspects and what the universities are actually valuing. So that's a bit of a problem. So on the one hand, it's very heartening to see once again, it's this period in our history that we lean on to come up with who are we going to honor for this new public holiday. We go to that period in our history. Yet, on the other hand, I don't know if that is reflective necessarily of academia or if it will have an impact. But we'll see. Like in terms of funding, and I know we'll be talking about this later, but I have been able to win funding to study early Irish history. So definitely the funding bodies understand the importance of studying this period. But I still don't have a permanent position in an Irish university. You know what I mean? And as I said, there are still undergraduates now who come into universities in Ireland and they can't actually take any classes or modules on this period of history. So there's a massive kind of chasm there, and I'm not sure. I'm going to do my best anyway to continue to promote this part of our history. That was kind of part of the media drive there over the last week or two around St. Bridget. Yes, as you said, I've been on lots of different TV and radio and online articles and that kind of thing, and I just keep bringing it back to the history of early medieval Ireland. As you said, Bridget rightly encompasses a lot of different facets. And I think that is, you say there in your question about the talents of women, I think that is one of the important things about this holiday. It's going to be really interesting to see now going forward what happens every year, because it's a big deal. Things like International Women's Day, they don't mean anything, right? Whereas this means something. It's a day off school. All of the kids in the country have a day off school, right? People have a day off work. That's going to turn into, I think, something a lot more tangible. People are going to be more interested in it, and people are going to celebrate in different ways, whether it's to, go out for dinner or, go to different parades or events. That's going to develop over the next, 5, 10, 20 years. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And I think that the focus is on women is really positive. Bridget is the perfect choice because even though she means different things to everybody, as you said, the saint, the goddess, the kind of new age religion, she is always really positive. She encompasses many strong virtues, and one common thread over everything is that she is kind of, and I think Elva Johnston kind of coined this phrase, patron of the powerless. She always looks after the disenfranchised in society. That's something that's consistent from the very earliest texts. So if we take cogitosis, arguably as the earliest text on Bridget, but we have poems and songs that are probably earlier than that. From then until now, Bridget, whatever Bridget you are into, she looks after the needy and the poor. She is inclusive. And she also, what I like about her is she's able to hold her own as well with kings and with the powerful in society. But I think in 2023, this is a really powerful and important message, you know, to be welcoming to people, to be inclusive, and to not to discriminate against anyone.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Niamh. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that's a take on Bridget that I didn't think much, but definitely, you know, that aspect of inclusiveness and kindness and concern with the needy and the poor is definitely something that we need to concern globally, but it is an issue in Ireland as well, with all the recent discussions we have, you know, about the number of homeless people and, you know, housing issues, all that kind of issues that we have there. Obviously, here in Brazil, everything is way bigger than the social problems we have in Ireland, but that doesn't mean that we don't have social problems in Ireland as well. So it's nice if that brings that kind of new perspective as well. If the holiday is used to think about it beyond, you know, the talents of women and the right of women to be at workspaces and not obviously doing what we know it's very important to look after our homes and our families and our children, but also to have that opportunity of developing our skills. So you were mentioning about funding, and that's the next topic I would like to talk to you about. So you have recently been successful at the SFI IRC Pathway Program. So that's a very prestigious program. It's a 4-year funding grant and scheme. And it's focused on the career stage that you mentioned, people at our level, that is mid-career, that is already very established, but doesn't have consolidated a career in the sense of getting job security. So we have all the skills that our colleagues have at that stage, but we don't have a permanent job. So that tries to fill in that gap. And that's a scheme that was lacking in Ireland for quite some years, because we have funding for PhDs like Tiago has, for early career postdocs, but we do not have anything for that kind of age gap, but also career framework. It aims at addressing the gender imbalance within the higher education sector by increasing the number of grants held by female researchers like yourself. So would you describe how you see this initiative, how this will impact your personal career, but also the Irish academic landscape?
Well, it's interesting because, listen, I'm obviously a big fan of the Science Foundation Ireland, and especially the Irish Research Council, because I've gotten funding from them previously and I find them very supportive. But I will say, and this is an amazing scheme now that I'm on, they do aim to address the gender imbalance, but they gave more awards to men than women. So, right, you know, they made it a condition that there had to be as many women applicants as men going forward from each institution. So therefore, there was a level playing field in that there was the same amount of women's applications being evaluated as men's applications, yet men came out with higher scores. And I mean, there could be, kind of institutionalized gender bias in that in itself. I don't know, right? Now, as in, I imagine, the reviewers were as objective as possible, but you know yourself, Elaine, that there are things that are going against certain people in society. Obviously, we're just talking about women here now in this instance, and I can't talk about, the experiences of other kind of so-called minority groups. But anyway, that is one of the aims of the scheme. It's an amazing scheme. As you said, it's unique in Ireland in that it addresses someone, like in our position, where you have all the ingredients, you have experience, in teaching, you have significant publications, you have a lot of proven experience in research, but you don't have a permanent position, right? And you haven't even been holding, a long-term position anywhere. Now, I'm only focusing. There's only a couple of flaws, I think, with the scheme, and one of them is that it's not a condition of it that you are given a permanent contract at the end of the 4 years, right? So when you're asking me about how it'll impact, obviously it's impacting my career massively. I mean, I'm given the opportunity to undertake some excellent research. 4 years is a really good amount of time for me to achieve something. However, I'm under no illusions that at the end of the 4 years, I will have a job. Right. So I am really grateful to the scheme. As I said, it's an excellent scheme. It's a significant amount of money to actually achieve something verifiable. But at the end of it, I may be in the exact same position as I was at the start. I will have a better CV, right? So I'll be more competitive for a job if a job comes up. But as I kind of mentioned earlier, there aren't really any jobs in medieval history. So, right, it's tricky. So, I've been given a leg up now. And as I said, I will be in a better position if something comes up, but whether that happens, and it's not a condition. I think it would have been given a lot more, teeth to the scheme if there was some kind of a condition where you could get a permanent job in the institution if you, completed the 4 years and satisfied some other, requirements. If there was ultimately the potential to get a permanent job. As you said, it's the aim of the scheme is to foster and promote people at this point, so as to keep, it says quite explicitly, to keep talented researchers within the academy, right? So that we don't leave and go into other industries. But ultimately, if you don't have any job security, maybe I'll ultimately end up having to leave academia anyway, right? So it's obviously it's very much wanted, but at the end of the day, it remains to be seen whether there'll be more jobs at the end of it, especially in the humanities, So we'll see.
Yeah, thanks, Niamh. Yeah, I totally agree and understand what you say. And it's interesting, the point that you're highlighting, that it's a wonderful scheme, but it still doesn't secure you anything beyond those 4 years. And as you know, but people watching us don't know that yet, but I have also recently applied to this scheme and I wasn't successful. I got very close to the benchmark, the score that was the cutting point. But from my point of view, what happens there, my major criticism is towards all the academics. So I think there is an effort of the government trying to end funding agencies like the IRC. And like yourself, I am also a fan of the IRC, and I believe in their intention of filling those gaps and addressing those issues. I have been funded through the IRC before, and I have worked on the other side, supporting people applying to grants. But basically, I think academics didn't change their mindset yet. So you can enforce that there is a equal number of applications coming from the universities, the same number of male applicants and female applicants, and the same number from each university across the country. So you're also giving each university the equal opportunity. You're giving smaller centers the opportunity of showing their scholars as well. But on the other hand, when it goes to the reviewers, a lot of them are not ready to comply to DORA CV style, yes. So they're still thinking of numbers and quantities, and they want to see the number of publications you have and not the quality of the publications you have and things like this. So I think there is still a long road of work to do to kind of really make this kind of scheme work, because you need the reviewers to understand what is the idea and collaborate towards that as well. But that said, fortunately, you have been funded, and it's great, and then you have Tiago on board on your project. So I want to give Tiago an opportunity to speak as well about what it represents to him. So so sorry, I just want to get back to my original question here. It's really delightful that we have the two of you together, because I was saying at the beginning, Insulae is a group of Brazilian researchers, mostly based in Brazil, potentially abroad as well. I have been based in Ireland, and part of the group was essentially for researchers from Brazil, working with Ireland and England and Scotland, Isle of Man. And so now we have a Irish funded project with a Irish principal investigator and a Brazilian working on board of this project. So would you tell us, Tiago, how was your process of applying to this position?
So, well, I was a history teacher in a public school in Brazil, and I was searching for PhD opportunities abroad. And I came across this opportunity here in Ireland with Niamh and Lizzie, Dr. Elizabeth Boyle. And when I read the call for applications, I thought it was perfect, because it dealt especially with patronage, and I was researching patronage during my master's degree. So I had a lot of interest, and I had a lot of readings on that matter. However, I had close to none knowledge about medieval Irish history, right? So I had to read a lot before doing the interview with them, and I have a lot to catch up on this whole history while I'm here as well. But it was pretty straightforward. I just applied online. They were great. It was a great interview. I just had to search a lot how to pronounce Irish names, so I wouldn't make a fool of myself during the interview. But yeah, it was an easy process. You just apply. I said online. I applied for it. We had an interview. You just send the usual documents, the CV, letter of intention, and the recommendation letters. Yeah, it's very similar to other positions abroad. It's very different from Brazil, where we have a lot of exams to get into a PhD position. We have language exams, at least 2 languages or 3 languages, if I'm not mistaken. But I was very lucky actually to find this position, because I was not expecting to find something so close to my research. So I was very lucky to find it, and I was very lucky to have it. Yeah, to be given this opportunity to be here and conduct this research with Niamh and Dr. Elizabeth. Yeah.
Thank you, Tiago. And how is your adaptation to Ireland and the University of Maynooth going? So when did you arrive there? When did you move? And how is this process going for you?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I arrived here in September, and Dr. Niamh was telling me about the weather, about the rain, and I was like, I was prepared for everything, for the rain, for the cold, but it wasn't that bad. So it's a pretty mild climate. It's not as bad as Brazil. Brazil's too hot or too cold or too much rain. Here's awesome. It's very mild climate. Even the rain, it doesn't rain as much as people say. I would say we have pretty bad rains in Brazil, and they have just a little bit of rain, so it's usually fine. So the weather was not a problem.
He's been really lucky with the weather.
Yeah, apparently I'm really lucky with the weather. I think we had St. Bridget's blessing this year, so
Yeah.
we were lucky. We were lucky for that. But apart from that, I think I was a little bit worried about the accent and my English. Although I have a pretty good knowledge with English in writing and reading, the Irish accent, I was a little bit wary of that. But as soon as I got here, I saw that at least Dublin accent is okay. It's very easy to understand. But I had some issues with other accents, which I sometimes I just can't. I just nod and just laugh because it's hard to understand. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And it's a great country. It's really beautiful here, and the state of research here in Maynooth, the university is really good. It's it's a it's a medium-sized university, but the quality of work that is done here, it's really good. And all of the professors, they are really, really, really good. They're well connected. The networking here in Maynooth is really good. And my colleagues are also incredible. They're very smart. They're conducting really interesting research. So I'm really glad and really lucky to be here. And yeah, I think adaptation wise, it was very easy to come here. Some people say that we have a big community of Brazilians here in Ireland. And I think part of it is because they're more open, I would say, than other Europeans for us, for Brazilians. Despite we're having some issues with immigrants here in Ireland, some people are protesting against them. But in general, all of my experiences have been very positive. I've been asked where I'm from and just told that I'm very welcome to stay here, and people are being very nice. So it was a surprise, a good surprise. So it's a great place to be, and a great place to research and study. And I think Elaine had a technical problem with her Wi-Fi internet, and yeah, Matheus there.
Yeah, I believe she had a problem again. I'm so sorry. I won't be able to open my camera because I'm also having internet issues right now. So I will keep the conversation. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Matthias, I can just talk a bit about the project that myself and Tiago are working on.
Perfect. Yeah.
No, please. Yeah. Oh, she's back. She's back.
Okay, well, I'll talk anyway. Elaine, I just said that
is very unstable. I have kind of data, and it's.
I just said there that I can just talk a little bit about the project that myself and Tiago are working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's the question. Yeah. So I basically, to try and keep it brief, the project is about. It's called Power and Patronage in Medieval Ireland. It's a case study of one particular church in Ireland called Clonard.
Yes,
it's in what is
I think we skipped that part. Yes, please do.
Yeah.
I do want to know about the project.
Yeah, so it's just looking at one church from medieval Ireland. So Clonard, which is very close to us here in Maynooth. It's a very, very, very small village in modern Ireland. And Tiago, I think, has met like half the people from Clonard already. The friendly Brazilian, everybody's getting to know. But even though it's very small now, Clonard was a pretty big deal in medieval Ireland. You know, it's mentioned in many sources. It was referred to in one text as the wealth of Ireland. And it's kind of, it's annals. I think we all went there for a second. I think we're back again. Anyway, but even though Clonard was a really important place in the early Middle Ages, it has attracted very little scholarship over the years. And there are various reasons perhaps for that. But anyway, it seemed like a very obvious place that was understudied that needed to be looked at. Also, because of its geographical position almost in the middle of Ireland, and especially it's kind of in the Middle Ages, it forms a kind of a boundary between really important political entities. So I propose this project just to look at Clonard. I mean, in a nutshell, without getting into too much of the minutiae of it, in a way, it's very straightforward, simple history. I am proposing to study this community, this church, this institution from its founding in perhaps the 5th or 6th centuries up until the 12th century, and to look at it, chronologically, how this institution grew in strength, how it identified itself, but also what that then tells us about this, this power and patronage, this interaction between ecclesiastical and so-called secular elites, how the impact of the so-called Scandinavians or the so-called Vikings into the political sphere. Clonard plays an important role in that. And then another really important aspect, which I started out as this not being a big aspect, but it's turning into a bigger and bigger deal as we get into the project, and that is gender, and that is the role of women in the church. And, I didn't set out as it to be much of a big deal because we just don't have a lot of information about women in medieval Ireland. But one of the things that the IRC scheme, the pathway grant that they did ask for, was for you to clearly enunciate how you were going to address sex and gender in your research. Now, this is obviously going to be unique to the specific discipline you're in. But I was lucky I wanted to do Clonard. And then I hadn't thought of the women's community that was founded in Clonard in the 12th century. And that's not a period of history that I would be an expert at. I kind of would be an expert maybe up until the 10th century. So I hadn't considered it. But it really, once I started to engage with that, I realized that this would make the perfect study for the PhD student, who is now Tiago, of course. And it's really interesting. Tiago, of course, is bringing his expertise in relation to patronage specifically, and looking at the kind of the agency of royal women and about what role they played in the founding of this ecclesiastical community in Clonard in the 12th century. And I'm trying to look at whether we have any accounts of female religious in Clonard before that. So an important foundation was established in the 12th century, the Arroasian order and the Augustinian order is called St. Mary's. That's Tiago's topic. So Tiago's going to be the one who's educating me about that. But he can explain, to you as well how he is going about that. But yeah, gender, Clonard is really interesting, and that it plays this pivotal role, or it's not that necessarily it plays this pivotal role, but it provides us with this perfect kind of prism to which we can look at all these different themes and how medieval Ireland chronologically develops over the Middle Ages, because then you have the Normans coming in after St. Mary's is founded in Clonard, the so-called Anglo-Normans, and then the landscape, the political landscape, the ecclesiastical landscape, that changes then in Ireland again. And that's where we then cut off our study. So that's kind of the overall study. As I said, in a way, it's not reinventing the wheel. We're doing a straightforward writing the history of this institution because it hasn't been done yet. And it's already it's been already fruitful in that it's already kind of yielding kind of results that show that, yes, looking at this one institution is actually giving us some insights into wider themes of kind of identity and gender in medieval Ireland.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll be responsible for researching specifically from the 12th century onwards, St. Mary's in Clonard. But I'm researching more broadly as well, monastic patronage, but with emphasis on female agency and female patronage.
As you were saying, I don't know if my internet is working properly. Are you folks listening to me, or am I off again?
Yeah.
I think your sound might be a little delayed, maybe. I think she's coming back in.
You may as well continue, Tiago.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm doing that research about female agency and female patronage of monasteries. And Clonard's very elusive place to research. So while we have little to none research on Clonard, part of it's explained because, Clonard it's basically non-existent anymore. The monastery and everything else. We've been there, and there's basically nothing. Unfortunately, everything has been destroyed for various reasons. But it is nice to see that the residents of Clonard, they're very enthusiastic about learning about their history and about the monastery. They're very open, very, very interested, sending a lot of emails. But I think one of the reasons why Clonard hasn't been researched that much is because we don't have that many records about Clonard, right? Most of the information's it's really very sparsely located. It's just mentions in annals, just Clonard, the wealth of Ireland, without further explanations. While we have, for example, Clonmacnoise, which is very well known, and we have ruins for that. We have lots of research for that. We have annals for Clonmacnoise. We have records for those. So one of the difficulties about conducting research on Clonard, it's definitely the historical records. But we're getting there. Me and Niamh, we're getting there. We're circling our area and just dwelling into more specific questions about Clonard and female agency, and the role that nuns and abbesses and royal women and regular or lay women also had into the patronage of these monasteries and nunneries. So I think it's going to be some pretty interesting for you.
I think what's important is that once you actually get stuck into a topic, there's more there than you realize, basically. And that just getting the conversation going, and then you'll talk to someone who has something else to kind of add to it and that kind of thing. So I think it's important to not be deterred from topics that, that seem to not have a lot of sources for them, because they don't compare to other topics. But there's always more there once you actually dig into it. And that's why for medieval Ireland, especially the earlier period, we're in a bit of a unique situation where you have to be multidisciplinary. You have to bring in all the different types of sources. You can't just rely on one type of source. So you need to reconcile the archaeological evidence, the place name evidence, the linguistic evidence, with the historical documents, seeing as they are lacking. And then you can't discriminate against any particular type of historical document either. So you need to get familiar with the literature, whether that's religious or otherwise, but also with, the legal material, with the chronicle material, and even with comparative studies as well elsewhere. So, Tiago's good at looking at, comparing, maybe especially in relation to patronage, about maybe what was going on at the same time in what we might term now Spain, for example, and seeing what we can learn from studies elsewhere as well. So there's a massive comparative component, and also just fundamentally to undertake a study in as much as we can for Ireland, along the same lines as has been undertaken for other jurisdictions, and this all then adds to the conversation about what we know about the medieval church, and adds to our knowledge, of ecclesiastical medieval history. So
yeah, absolutely. I think we should use these so-called auxiliaries disciplines for history, such as archaeology, anthropology, linguistics, and everything that we can, to really add to the research and not be just limited by the information we have on written records, for example. And I think that's one point that Brazilian scholars, for example, could really go well into, because we're always taught and we're used to using all of these auxiliary sciences in history, such as anthropology, because we're very much influenced by French historiography. So we have a very broad look on history. So I think Brazilians and other scholars also have this opportunity and this look onto things that could really, look at things more broadly and help to develop the field. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry again, I keep being cut off and getting back. I heard most of, because I got to hear as if I was watching on YouTube, so I got to hear most of what you said. I'm just wondering if you got a chance, Tiago, to, I don't know if Mateus had a chance to ask you, what would be your advice for other early career researchers like yourself, particularly people perhaps weren't to work in Ireland or elsewhere? And most importantly, would you recommend Ireland as a place of study and research to other academics in Brazil and elsewhere?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I cannot stress this enough. Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm not really sure what advice I would give because, well, I'm just starting it now. But I think to keep your options always broad. So in Brazil, we usually look for PhDs in France. I think it's the most common place that Brazilians go. Portugal and the US. And I think we're already very much influenced from French, Portuguese, and at some point American historiography. So I think it is good for Brazilians to and for other people as well to have contact with us to broaden the places that you would be available to conduct research. So Ireland, Netherlands, even Germany, and some other places that usually are not the first option. So I think one of my advices would be to broaden your research on where to conduct your PhD. And another one is always try to keep active in academia. Try to publish papers or participate in conferences. It's always interesting. It's always important to keep yourself updated with the new, what is being researched in the world, what people are saying. So always try to participate. And right now, many conferences are being are being held online. So there, you probably won't have any problems participating in that. And I'd say to keep up your Latin, which is very important, paleography, if you can. I know that in Brazil we have many courses in paleography that you can you can go to even online, so you can get the experience going. So you never really stop doing research. So I think it's another important point. And another thing is that you should embrace, I think, maybe embrace what your studies in Brazil or elsewhere have given to you, this vision, and really try to broaden and give something new to the field using this broadened site that you have in Brazil. So when I came here, I saw that French historiography, for example, is not that much used here. So I think it is a good addition to have someone to look at art history, to look at historical anthropology, the École des Annales, to have someone looking at comparatively at Spain and Ireland, at Portugal and Ireland, France, and how these places are integrated or even different. So really, I think you have to think that your vision and your studies can really contribute, because they can really contribute to the field and really sell yourself and present these new ideas to the world. I try to do that. Yeah. And if Ireland is a great place, yeah, it's a great place. I really recommend Ireland for to study, because it's great. It's really integrated. So we are well connected with England, with the US. We're really close with the Netherlands as well. So in Ireland, I mean, there's no place better to study early Ireland than in Ireland, right? So I don't think you can get any better than that. And definitely Maynooth is one, if not the best university to research Irish history, medieval Irish history, at least. And we're really well connected with DIAS, with TCU, DCU. So everything is going on in this area here. So for networking, it's really, really important, really, really good. And well, everyone's just really nice. I can't not stress this enough. Just they're really nice. They really value your past research, and they're very understanding about everything. So I really recommend it. Yeah, and there's no place better to study Old Irish, which is a very difficult language and chaotic. I cannot stress this enough again. But this if you want to study Ireland, this is the place you have to come here. And as Niamh was telling us earlier, I think that the government, the Irish government, is really trying to invest in Irish history research, right? So this is a great moment as well to apply for these positions for a PhD, for a master's, and for a postdoc, because funding is more likely to come here than elsewhere. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Tiago. I'm so happy, that your experience in Ireland has been so positive, and I hope it will stay like this. I am very suspicious to say, because obviously I think I lived already half of the number of years I have in Ireland and the other half here in Brazil. So those are two precious places for me. I think what is very interesting about your project and you on that project, and you were telling people to think broad, is that usually in Brazil and in Ireland, we are more used to the tradition where we define our research topic and we seek individual funding. So that's the way I did, that's the way Niamh did. So we do our master's and we do our doctoral research very related to that, and we go and we get our own funding. While in the Netherlands, it's very common to do the way the two of you are doing. So you have a senior researcher that gets a larger grant and hires a doctoral student to work on that project. And you were very brave in applying to that, because your topic were not exactly, your master's topic were not exactly the expertise of Niamh, but you had a lot in common, and you can complement each other's work. And as you were saying, like the Celtic languages are extremely difficult for us, for people that come from Latin-based language. But on the other hand, we have, because we speak Portuguese, most of us would read Spanish, for example. So we can read something from Spanish historiography and see what we can contribute in that sense. So what I would say as well is for people to take those opportunities. I know I'm so happy that you got that grant, but obviously we have several other people that could have applied to that, and perhaps they don't think, I'm not the perfect fit. And there isn't a perfect fit. Like, you can complement each other's work, and it's happy when we see that happening. So I'm wondering if we skipped talking about anything, if there is anything, Niamh, that you want to say before we close.
The thing is that I do have a bit of a unique perspective. I'm a bit, all the kind of the skills that Tiago had were the ones that I was looking for, and that I value. Everybody isn't the same as I am. And some people are very insular in Ireland, so Tiago's kind of having like the optimum experience in a way, like myself, and then Lizzie is his co-supervisor for his PhD, and she has all the connections with Cambridge, which is kind of produces a lot of the top research in for kind of like medieval Ireland and associated areas. And as he said, in Maynooth you get to be you get highly trained in Old Irish as well, right? But anyway, what I'm saying is, yes, just to kind of elaborate on what you were saying about apply if you see something, right? So maybe someone else mightn't have appreciated how brilliant Tiago obviously is, but definitely do apply. So for me, even though it didn't matter as much that he didn't know about medieval Ireland, medieval Irish history, what he clearly demonstrated was that the skills he had were exactly transferable, right? And that his skills were applicable to this project as they are, right? So what was more important was that he had good Latin, that he had good understanding of the wider ecclesiastical context in, and manuscript production context and everything in medieval Europe. So I think make it really clear in your applications how, you don't say, oh, well, I do not have, you don't point out the weaknesses. You just get straight to the strengths. And also what Tiago demonstrated very clearly to me was that he read, and this is a big issue with applications, I find at every level. So my colleagues, even who are applying for things, you come to the job application or funding application or whatever it is, not with your preconceived notions of what you want to achieve, but how you can fulfill the requirements that they're looking for. So I specifically asked for in the ad for the PhD student, someone to look at the 12th century order of Eurasian nuns, right? So Tiago, and I said, how would you address this, right, in your application? So Tiago researched that. Right? Okay, he didn't know anything about it beforehand. He didn't come to it with, wow, there's a PhD opportunity to work on the exact thing that I was hoping to work on, right? He said, okay, no, I can do this. I have the skills to study this. So he did his research before he put in the application. He showed me how he would approach the topic without even, I wasn't expecting anybody to know yet because, they hadn't started the PhD. But he did enough research to show that he would, be able to approach the topic. And then when he got called for interview, and we did the interview over Zoom, he read as much as he could, and as much as he could get on the internet before the interview. And that, again, it showed that he was willing to work. Right. So it didn't matter that he didn't already know everything about medieval Ireland, because he can learn, right? So there are certain things that you can't be taught. You can't be taught the determination, the work ethic, certain maybe amount of like basic skills. Project is engagement. Engagement with the public, engagement. Tiago's brilliant at engaging with people in Clonard. I also was looking for someone who wouldn't be lonely and alone, right? Stuck in, because I think the most difficult thing about doing a PhD is actually just completing completing it in the time frame, right? And let's say that's 4 years, okay? So Tiago showed me that he had the work ethic and the stamina and the previous experience. So what he just said to you there earlier was keep on reading, keep on, going to, online conferences, keep up with so you might not have a job in academia, but keep up with it, so that was super clear to me when interviewing him and in his CV and everything, that he knew what it took to succeed in academia, and that he was going to have as I said, that determination to actually get through the PhD. Like, he was realistic and pragmatic about what it takes. These are all really, really, really important things that I certainly was looking for, and that I think a lot of people are looking for. And they're looking for that even in grants, they're looking for feasibility. Do you really know? I mean, a comment, Elaine, I don't know if you've noticed this, a lot of people get comment back that it's too ambitious. Or something along those lines, that, you haven't shown that you understand the nitty gritty of how this is actually going to be executed in the time frame, an understanding of budgets, an understanding, just to show that this is something that you will be able to execute it. Because the second you start to propose something that it seems impossible within the time frame, well, then you lose credibility as someone who's actually done enough research to understand what it takes, right? So I think just when you're applying for things, look at what they're asking for, right? So that's what's important. Look at what they're asking for. Tiago gave me, he was really clear on what, it was clear what his personality was, what his area of expertise had been until now, but that he got, this is what this project is, right? He did the research and he demonstrated that he was able to satisfy my criteria, right? And then the interesting thing now, and hopefully it'll work out over the 4 years, Elaine, is what you're saying about it doesn't have the freedom to do whatever he wants. Okay, so you and I were able to come to our PhD with our own ideas, and he doesn't have that because he has to do something quite specific as part of my project. But I'm hoping that we're working quite well together so far, that he is still able to get everything he wants out of it, and get to pursue all of his interests in relation to patronage, and also cover everything that I need for my project. So, but that's a teamwork, you know, and that's a balance there. And then I can be a little bit adaptable with my project, you know, and so it's all about working together. And I think it's important to be flexible in the current market, you know, so Tiago wasn't going to be pig-headed about, well, I'm not going to apply for this because I just only want to do. A lot of people, it amazes me how many people complain that they can't get things. And then I talk to them about it and they're like, well, I only want to do this. And, you know, no one will give me the money to do that. And I'm like, well, you know, I think I might have said in one job interview, I can't remember if I actually did, but it's what I was thinking in my head. I can't remember the exact question, but basically what I wanted to say is, whatever you'll pay me to do, I'll study. Right. You know, so I do think you need to, I mean, you have to have an interest, and I know, you know, or listen, it's not a great term, but a passion for the topic, okay? A passion for the work, because otherwise you won't get through it. However, you must be flexible, and you have to be like, okay, well, this isn't exactly what, you know, it's the exact same in every single workplace. You have to work with other people, and you don't get to do exactly what you want all the time. And, you know, people are looking for individuals who are good team players and who are adaptable and who aren't just looking out for themselves the whole time. And it's a bad researcher is one that can only see the world from their perspective, you know? So it only enriches your skills and your potential as a researcher to be able to work on someone else's project anyway, you know, and then to put your own personality into it as well. But that's the real world, you know. We don't all work. Academia to date has been very, in the humanities anyway, has been very much like old white dudes, you know, working away in the library, you know, all by himself the whole time, right? And then just communicating that research to other old white dudes. And, you know, there's a limit to where we can get to with that. So I think it's great to sometimes do the work that you're being paid to do, that someone is willing to pay you to do. So you shouldn't, when you're looking for things, don't rule out things because they don't satisfy exactly the criteria that you were looking for in a position.
Yeah, I agree completely with Dr. Niamh. I mean, first of all, I was really lucky to have her as my supervisor because she was so excited for this research. You could literally see on her face, like she was really excited to start researching that. And I also was really excited to research that. But I completely agree with her. You should be able to be very flexible on what you were researching, right? As she said, and I think it was perfect, like you have a set of skills, and this set of skills, they are transferable to many things. You just have to know where to apply this set of skills and be willing to do research, right? Of course, I was super lucky to find something on patronage. I was super lucky to find someone like Dr. Niamh and like Dr. Lizzie, which are perfect and great. And we I think we connected a lot and we fit right in. We have the same work ethics. We're very excited. But sometimes you're not going to find a job position or a PhD position exactly on what you want. Sometimes you're not going to find someone that is that excited or that interested in giving a position to a person that is not a white male old guy or whatever, right? But you just have to be open to everything. You have a set of skills. You are a researcher. You know how to deal with historical research. You just have to apply to everything that you feel like you could do that research, and then at some point in the future you can then choose on what exactly you want to research, as Dr. Niamh was able to do. She wanted to research con art and gender, and she went a long way until she could really achieve this place that she is now. So I think everything has an order, and everything goes in its own pace. So you just have to, keep doing and keep practicing and keep honing your skills through research. It doesn't matter really if you're really into patronage or I don't know, early modern studies. So just go with it, and then you can just develop better your skills and choose later on whatever you want to do. Yeah.
We have already gone a little bit over time, but I can see there is one question, or maybe more. I think there is one, at least from the audience. Are you happy to take that? Do you think you can go for it?
Yeah, no problem.
So, Dr. Wycherley, a pleasure to hearing you, and that's Kawe Junior Neko. For you, how do you abroad scholars, especially in global and connected perspectives, could contribute to rethinking early medieval Ireland beyond its frontiers?
Well, yeah, okay, I think we lost Tiago. But this is what, I mean, I'm not the only person saying this. It's kind of, it's the, Tiago, we're sorry we lost you momentarily because,
yeah, sorry.
But, like Elva, who you had last year, she is one of the people who are showing that we have to understand early medieval Ireland as part of the early medieval world, right? So, she has published a few articles on late antique Ireland, okay? And she was kind of the first person from a historical perspective anyway, not an archaeological one, to discuss Ireland in these terms. That we've long since established that there's no such thing as Celtic Ireland, right? So let me go one step further and understand that Ireland is just one jurisdiction in late antiquity. So I think the second you understand that, which is fairly self-evident, right? But it's funny that in relation to Ireland, we've had to kind of argue that. Then obviously, perspectives from outside Ireland contribute greatly to understanding what's going on in the the early medieval period here, and exactly that's one of the things that came out in Tiago's application that I appreciated anyway, was that he was gonna have to do a good bit of work to learn early Irish history, and maybe he wouldn't ever learn it to the same amount of knowledge that someone else would who had already studied it for a number of years. However, straight away I could see, but he's going to bring perspectives on other jurisdictions, right, that I only read about in the English language mainly, to be honest. So, I can read French. Sometimes, because a lot of my studies to date has been on relics, and there's a lot of stuff by German scholars. So sometimes I'll do a bit of work, get a bit of help translating some German articles, but I don't really read Spanish or Portuguese or Italian. And I read them in English translation, right? Or, not until they've been filtered down, that kind of thing. So straight away, I could see the benefit that someone like Tiago could bring. It would bring this added dimension. So again, it's something different because there's no one correct way to approach any historical period, to be honest. So even though I wasn't initially looking for someone to be able to provide that perspective, the second I saw that he could do that, I was like, well, that'll add something important, because I think one thing now in 2023 is you can't look at anywhere, in glorious isolation, right? So whether we can learn anything from the studies that are going on, again, to use Spain as an example, it remains to be seen. I think we can, especially in relation to the 12th century order of nuns. There are some interesting studies that Tiago's already read in Spanish again, so Tiago straight away, and I'm hoping, he's only started in September, like the project only started in September, but he might be able to tap into kind of those European networks, right? And then maybe beyond Europe, maybe more global networks, right? And it was a real thing in Ireland that it was this unique place, and insular and that kind of thing. And some people around the world still view us that way. I and many scholars here, we certainly don't view ourselves as insular. And definitely, it's fashionable now in 2023 to be able to contribute these global and connected perspectives. So it's definitely something that you should be looking at, and you should be, selling yourself as that, if that's where your area kind of expertise lies. I don't know if that answers your question that way, but hopefully.
I think it was an excellent question, and really, tap into what Kawé is thinking. I am really delighted to talk to the two of you. I want to apologize again for the weak internet. Yeah, Kawé is answering there. Yes, thanks. Niamh, I have told you this before. You're a great communicator. You speak very well. I'm not surprised you have, guessing attention to talk about Bridget and your work, and it's great for the impact of your project and your scholarship. Tiago was saying about the, usually in Brazil when people learn English, it tends to be the American English. In my case, I arrived in Ireland with no English, so I had to learn first Ireland. And even though learning in Ireland, when I joined the PhD program, I still had, I did struggle to understand a few people, but I never had that problem with Niamh. So I know Niamh since I started my PhD, and she was always that buddy and that person I could talk to because I could understand her. So it's, you're an amazing communicator, Niamh, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today and for all your answers. Tiago, thank you so much as well. Your English is brilliant. It's a rare thing here in Brazil, so that's something we're still working on, our language skills. So you are part of a small group of people that speaks English well, and now you're having this great opportunity of learning Old Irish. So hopefully more of us will grasp a little of that language. I know it's difficult, we will get there.
He'll know more Old Irish than I do by the end of it. He will.
Not all.
So he's so good at languages.
I didn't have the
Hardly.
same, kind of core of people teaching me Old Irish, and the same amount of time you will have to yourself today. So you are in the best place for that. You will survive, and you'll be fine at the end of it. But yes, thank you so much. I know there is, the time difference and all the work and personal responsibilities, and we are delighted that you could take time to be with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do you want to say any final words? Or
Thank you for inviting us. Yeah.
We'll come back in a few years' time and share with you our research and what we've discovered.
Please do. That would be wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
To hear all the results.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for inviting us. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
And
we hope to be. Yeah. Obrigado por terem vindo aqui e perguntado e participado da live. Thank you.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to learn Portuguese now.
I'll teach you. It's easier than Old Irish. So you should be fine.
Well, yeah, my Old Irish leaves a lot to be desired as well. Anyway.
So say hello back to everyone in Ireland. I'm already missing Ireland, even though I was there for a short while in December. But it's interesting to be living back in Brazil again. But yes, hello to our colleagues there. Okay, good afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you. Obrigada.
Bye.